Ambassador Hill asked slowly, "Are you telling me that you caused an intergalactic incident with your posterior? Are you really that surprised?" Ambassador Honeypot gave him a naughty grin, turning to display the part in question. She met his eyes with parted lips and a come-hither stare. "I mean, have you seen this thing?" Her uniform was tight, perfectly outlining a posterior that could launch 1,000 ships. She wriggled in his direction. Ambassador Hill spared a moment to thank God and his keen diplomatic instincts that he had been sitting down at his desk when she arrived. He had been working with Miss Honeypot for 2 years now, and she had noticed his attraction fairly early. She teased him mercilessly at every opportunity. Mr. Hill did his best to ignore it. If he secretly wished the woman's flirtatious banter was an indication of something deeper, he would never be so foolish as to admit it. She was a colleague, and he was a professional. Still, a man could dream. Vanessa Honeypot was a vision, and she knew it. Curly red hair, eyes like emerald fire, and a body so perfect he had her background investigated for genetic tampering. He found none, but he did learn that Honeypot wasn't her original last name. She had legally changed it. Her English accent was an affectation as well, but it was one that worked for her. She had a voice that could melt tungsten. Ambassador Hill took a moment to center himself. It was important that he remained calm. Miss Honeypot might be all flirtatious bravado now, but 3 hours ago she had been a crying, terrified mess. Not that he blamed her. "This isn't the time for jokes," Hill chided. "It took months to get the GRE and the Hoth to agree to negotiate. Now both sides are threatening war." The GRE and the Hoth were all members of the Gref species, but a schism in their government had caused a civil war that had gone on for nearly a century. "Peace is such a fragile thing," Honeypot remarked. "We both know the ceasefire wasn't going to last." "But the ceasefire is still in effect," Hill told her. "They're threatening to go to war with us." Honeypot's cheerful facade crumbled for a moment, revealing genuine worry. What the hell happened down there? Ambassador Hill didn't really want to press the woman, but he needed to know. "The extraction team gave me an initial report, but it didn't make a lot of sense." "It was?" Ambassador Honeypot's lip trembled for a moment, then she sighed and looked down. "It was Taco Tuesday." "Taco Tuesday?" "Oh no." Ambassador Honeypot was undoubtedly the most beautiful, charming, and self-assured woman Ambassador Hill had ever had the pleasure of working with. However, she had one significant flaw. Her flatulence was legendary. Ambassador Hill couldn't pinpoint the exact combination of gut bacteria responsible, but he knew that a gassy honeypot produced the most raunchy, potent, and horrifying smells he had ever encountered. On their last assignment, the Valen envoys had referred to her as Leafy Lich. She was delighted when they told her it meant Mistress of the Flaming Hair. Ambassador Hill didn't have the heart to tell her it actually meant Mistress of the Deadly Gases. "Tell me you didn't," Ambassador Hill implored. "We were in the lift," Honeypot explained. "You know how both envoys insist on going together. Neither side wants to be kept waiting, and God forbid they take separate elevators and one arrives before the other. So, we were all crammed in together. And you had to," Ambassador Hill trailed off, praying this wasn't going where he thought. "I had tacos," Honeypot huffed. "It was a crowded elevator. I didn't think they'd know it was me." "But they did," Hill guessed. "And they were offended?" "Not exactly," Honeypot grimaced. "When they smelled it, they sort of got excited." "Excited?" Hill's brow furrowed. "Yes," Honeypot blushed, clearly rattled. "They were just sniffing at first, but after a few seconds, they all started tearing each other's clothes off." Ambassador Hill blinked in disbelief. "No, really," Honeypot insisted. "They went mad. Everyone in the lift started pawing and grunting. Then the Lord Regent grabbed me, and I just—" her eyes watered. "I hit the panic button." The diplomatic corps took the safety of its ambassadors very seriously. When Ambassador Honeypot activated her panic button, a strike team was dispatched within seconds. In under a minute, they forced their way into the elevator, shot the Lord Regent of the Hath, along with several members of both diplomatic envoys, and pulled the ambassador and her staff out. They had used non-lethal stun pistols, thank God, but it was still a terrible mess. Ambassador Hill took a deep breath. "Let me see if I have this straight. You farted in a cramped elevator, and it started an orgy? Yes. Then the Lord Regent of the Hath tried to force himself on you? Honeypot breathed out through her nose and nodded. Yes. And then you hit the panic button, and a strike team busted in and shot him? She looked down at the floor. Yes. Holy hell! Ambassador Hill sagged in his chair, rubbing his temples. He didn't usually get stress headaches, but he really felt like he should this time. I'm sorry, said Honeypot. I didn't mean for this to happen. It's not your fault, Hill cut her off. Hitting the panic button was the right thing to do. But how the hell does a fart cause an orgy? I don't know, Honeypot admitted. Pheromones? Do pheromones even come out of there? I don't think so, said Hill. I guess the why is something for the science team to figure out. Certainly. Here's a rewritten detailed explanation of the provided text. Ambassador Hill and Ambassador Honeypot are in a critical situation. They are tasked with securing a treaty that could prevent a civil war and gain support from the powerful Vries Union. Failure could mean not just losing their jobs, but also severe consequences for their alliance. Despite the pressure, Ambassador Hill reassures Ambassador Honeypot that they will face the challenges together, emphasizing their importance to each other professionally. Unexpectedly, during their tense exchange, Ambassador Hill inadvertently confesses his feelings for Ambassador Honeypot. This moment of vulnerability surprises both of them. Ambassador Honeypot, using her ocular implants secretly, confirms his emotional state, which breaches diplomatic etiquette but confirms her suspicions. This revelation disrupts their professional demeanor momentarily. Ambassador Hill tries to regain composure, urging Ambassador Honeypot to maintain their professional relationship despite the awkwardness. However, Ambassador Honeypot playfully chides him for his lack of awareness, teasing him about not realizing her feelings sooner. This banter is interrupted by an urgent call regarding the peace negotiations, reminding them of their primary mission. They set aside personal tensions and focus on the incoming transmission from the Ho Ambassador, signaling the continuation of their diplomatic efforts. As they prepare to discuss critical matters with Ambassador Yulong of the Gref, they adopt formalities, temporarily setting aside personal revelations for the sake of diplomatic progress. Certainly. Here's a more detailed rewrite of the passage. After the tense incident, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The GRE, visibly exasperated, asked me to convey his apologies to Ambassador Honeypot for his earlier behavior. He pressed a thumb wearily against the bridge of his nose, a gesture of frustration. Tell him I accept his apology, Ambassador Honeypot responded calmly, her demeanor unwaveringly diplomatic. Despite the earlier tension, she showed no trace of distress, her composure highlighting her experience as a seasoned diplomat. With a composed demeanor, Ambassador Honeypot mirrored the GRE's gesture, placing her thumb briefly on her nose before switching to her other thumb, a gesture indicating reciprocity. And I offer one of my own, she added gracefully. My emission was simply a natural part of my species' digestive process. I had no idea it would have that effect on him, she explained, seeking to clarify the misunderstanding. We initially thought you had administered some form of drug, the GRE interjected, his tone softer now with understanding. But our investigation has confirmed that the emission was indeed natural. We believe that neither you nor we could have anticipated its effect on GFF biology. Ambassador Yulong accepted the apology graciously, touching his nose in acknowledgement. Your apology is accepted, he replied diplomatically. Does this mean the Lord Regent is open to reopening negotiations? Ambassador Hill inquired optimistically. Perhaps, replied the GRE thoughtfully, you might be interested to know that the Prince Regent and the Governor of GRE found common ground during the incident. Neither party objects any longer to a joining of houses. Ambassador Hill was visibly relieved. That is excellent news, he exclaimed. Perhaps we can resume the talks as early as tomorrow? The day after tomorrow would be more preferable, the GRE suggested, his voice measured. But yes, the peace talks can resume then. Agreed, said Ambassador Hill, nodding in agreement. Is there anything else I can assist you with? Ambassador Yulong hesitated momentarily, carefully choosing his words. The Lord Regent has expressed an interest in studying the ambassador's digestive emissions. He has requested some samples for research purposes. Ambassador Honeypot responded judiciously, "We will consider the request." She then concluded the exchange with a gesture of respect, running 3 fingers down her cheek in a sign of honor. "Strength and honor to you," she said sincerely. Ambassador Hill mirrored her gesture, offering his own. "Strength and honor to you both," he echoed respectfully. The GRE nodded in acknowledgement, signaling the end of the transmission. Joe, who had been holding his breath throughout the exchange, finally exhaled with a sense of relief. "That went well," he remarked to Vanessa, who nodded in agreement beside him. "I suppose it did," she replied, meeting his gaze with a hint of a smile. Encouraged by the positive outcome and Vanessa's supportive presence, Joe gathered his courage and ventured, "Would you like to join me for dinner?" Vanessa's response was firm, yet it carried a hint of playfulness. "No," she replied bluntly, but her eyes softened as she continued, "Now that I've figured you out, I'm not letting you off that easily. You're coming back to my quarters with me." Without waiting for Joe's response, she pressed a button on the desk phone. "Duet," she addressed the senior assistant. "Peace talks will resume the day after tomorrow. We're wrapping up for tonight." She placed a reassuring hand on Joe's shoulder to preempt any objections. "Tomorrow morning, I'll need 5 jars with sealable lids and a burrito," she instructed efficiently. "Yes, Ambassador," Duet acknowledged promptly. Vanessa glanced at Joe thoughtfully before pressing the button again. "Make that 2 burritos," she added, a faint smile playing on her lips.